What happens when Hollywood's toughest legend completely loses it on live television? In just 33 seconds, everything fell apart on Good Morning America, and what Michael Strahan said next made Clint Eastwood snap in a way nobody saw coming. Before we get into this absolute chaos, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals, the confrontations they don't want you to see, and the moments that get buried. Don't miss out. Last night's episode of Good Morning America was supposed to be a celebration. Clint Eastwood, the legendary actor and director, was there to talk about his latest project. But within minutes, the whole thing turned into one of the most uncomfortable moments in morning television history. What started as a conversation quickly spiraled into a full-blown argument that ended with Eastwood walking off the set, leaving Michael Strahan sitting there in complete shock. The trouble started almost immediately. Strahan began the conversation by bringing up Eastwood's age, asking him about retirement. Now, anyone who knows anything about Clint Eastwood knows that's a dangerous topic. The man is 94 years old, and still directing movies, still acting, still working harder than people half his age. But Strahan pushed it anyway. "Clint, you're 94 now," Strahan said with that big smile of his. "At what point do you think about slowing down? I mean, most people your age are relaxing, spending time with grandkids. What keeps you going?" Eastwood's face didn't change much, but you could see something shift in his eyes. He leaned back in his chair and said, "Michael, I'll slow down when I'm dead. Until then, I've got work to do." The audience laughed. It seemed like a good moment, but Strahan didn't leave it there. He kept going. "But seriously," Strahan continued, "don't you think there's a time when you have to pass the torch? Let the younger generation take over?" That's when the temperature in the room started to drop. Eastwood wasn't smiling anymore. He looked directly at Strahan and said, "Pass the torch to who? People who spend more time on their phones than learning their craft. I'll pass the torch when I see someone worth passing it to." Strahan's eyebrows went up. "Wow, that's pretty dismissive of an entire generation of talented people." "Dismissive?" Eastwood leaned forward now. "I'm being honest. You want me to sit here and blow smoke? Tell everyone that mediocrity is excellence, just to be polite? I want you to acknowledge that talent exists outside of your era." Strahan shot back, his smile fading a bit. "There are incredible filmmakers out there doing amazing work." "Name 3, Eastwood said flatly. Strahan blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Name 3 filmmakers working today who are doing something that actually matters. Not just making money, not just getting likes on social media, actually making art." "That's not a fair question," Strahan said, shifting in his seat. "Why not? If they're so incredible, their names should roll right off your tongue." The co-hosts were exchanging worried glances now. This wasn't going the way anyone planned. Strahan cleared his throat and tried to redirect. "Look, I'm not here to debate film theory with you, Clint, but you have to admit that cinema has evolved. The way stories are told has changed." "Evolved?" Eastwood's voice had an edge now. "Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I'm sitting, it's devolved. Everything's a sequel, a remake, or based on a comic book. Where's the originality?" "Comic book movies are some of the highest-grossing films of all time," Strahan countered. "And McDonald's sells more burgers than anyone else. Does that make it fine dining?" The audience got quiet. Strahan laughed it off, but you could tell he was getting uncomfortable. His co-hosts were glancing at each other, trying to figure out if they should jump in. But Michael decided to push forward instead. "That's pretty condescending, Clint. You're basically saying that if it's popular, it's garbage." "No. I'm saying that popularity doesn't equal quality. There's a difference. But you wouldn't know that because you're part of the problem. You sit here every morning celebrating whatever garbage Hollywood puts out, never asking the hard questions." Strahan's jaw tightened. "We celebrate good work when we see it. Do you? Or do you celebrate whatever studios pay you to promote?" "That's out of line," Strahan said, his voice getting harder. "Is it? How many times have you had someone on this couch promoting a movie that you knew was terrible, and you sat there smiling and nodding like it was a masterpiece? That's my job. I'm a host, not a critic." "Exactly," Eastwood said coldly. "You're a salesman, not a journalist, not an artist. A salesman with good teeth and a nice suit." One of the co-hosts tried to jump in. "Okay, let's take a step back here. No, Strahan interrupted. His eyes locked on Eastwood. Let him finish. Clearly, he has a lot to say about what I do. You want me to finish? Eastwood asked. Fine. The problem with shows like this is that you've made entertainment into a popularity contest. You don't care about quality. You care about clicks and views and trending topics, and you wonder why everything's so shallow. That is such elitist bullshit, Strahan fired back, and you could hear the anger creeping into his voice now. Not everyone can be Clint Eastwood, sitting on their high horse judging everyone else. Some of us work for a living in the real world. The real world? Eastwood's eyes narrowed. Kid, I've worked more days on actual film sets than you've worked in your entire career. Don't talk to me about the real world. I played professional football, Strahan shouted. I worked my ass off for years. You think that's not the real world? And now you're here. Eastwood gestured around the studio, asking softball questions and giggling with celebrities. Real tough work. That was it. That was the moment Strahan's professionalism completely cracked. He stood up slightly in his chair, pointing at Eastwood. You know what? Screw you, Clint. You don't get to come on my show and disrespect what I do. I've earned everything I have. By doing what? Eastwood shot back, not backing down an inch. By being likable? By smiling pretty? I've created art that will outlive both of us. What have you created besides a morning show that nobody will remember in 5 years? The studio was in complete chaos now. Producers were scrambling, cameras were still rolling, and both men were on their feet, staring each other down. At least I'm relevant, Strahan yelled. At least people still care about what I'm doing. When's the last time anyone gave a damn about one of your movies? Eastwood took a step closer. When's the last time you did anything that required actual talent instead of just reading off a teleprompter? That's it! Strahan threw his hands up. Get him out of here! I'm done with this! I'm already leaving, Eastwood snarled. I don't need to stand here and be interviewed by someone who thinks celebrity gossip is journalism. Then go, Strahan shouted. Nobody's stopping you. Run back to whatever hole you crawled out of. That's a pretty harsh view of the younger generation, Strahan said, trying to regain some control. Don't you think there's incredible talent out there? I mean, look at all the amazing young actors and directors making waves right now. Eastwood shook his head slowly. Making waves? They're making noise. There's a difference. Back in my day, we learned by doing. We worked with masters of the craft. We spent years perfecting our skills. Now everyone thinks they can direct a movie because they made a viral video on TikTok. That's so reductive, Strahan said, his frustration showing. You're painting an entire generation with the same brush. Am I wrong, though? Eastwood challenged. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that the average actor today has the same training, the same dedication, the same raw ability as the actors from my generation. They have different skills for a different era. Different skills, Eastwood repeated mockingly. You mean they know how to post on Instagram? They know how to manufacture controversy to stay relevant? Those aren't skills, Michael. Those are survival tactics for people with no actual talent. Strahan was getting visibly angry now. His voice rose. You are so out of touch. It's unbelievable. The industry has changed. Social media is part of the business now. You have to adapt or get left behind. Adapt? Eastwood's voice got harder, more cutting. I don't need to adapt to garbage. I don't need to prostitute myself on social media to stay relevant. My work speaks for itself. Can these young actors you're defending say the same thing? Yes, they can. But you're too stuck in your ways to see it. I'm stuck in my ways? Eastwood leaned forward, his voice dripping with contempt. I've been making movies for over 60 years. I've adapted to new technology, new storytelling methods, new everything. But I haven't compromised quality. That's what you're really asking me to do. Compromise. Accept that mediocre is the new excellent. And I won't do it. Nobody's asking you to accept mediocrity. Strahan's hands were gesturing wildly now. We're asking you to acknowledge that good work is being done by people who aren't you. When I see good work, I'll acknowledge it. Until then, I'll call it what it is. Overproduced, underwritten crap designed to separate teenagers from their parents' money. The co-hosts were frozen. Nobody knew what to do. This had gone way past awkward and straight into hostile. But Strahan wasn't done. Neither was Eastwood. And the worst was still to come. Strahan took a breath, clearly trying to steady himself, and decided to shift topics. Looking back, this might have been the biggest mistake of the whole interview. "Speaking of your movies," Strahan said, and there was an edge in his voice now that hadn't been there before. "There's been some criticism over the years about the politics in your films. Some people say you've pushed a certain agenda. How do you respond to that?" The change in Eastwood's face was immediate. If he'd been annoyed before, now he was angry. Really angry. "What people?" His voice was low and dangerous. "Well, critics, audiences, people who analyze film." "People who analyze film," Eastwood interrupted, his words clipping short and sharp, "are usually people who can't make films themselves. They sit in their little ivory towers and pick apart the work of people who actually do something. So forgive me if I don't give a damn what they think." "But you do push an agenda," Strahan pressed, not letting it go. "Your films have a very specific point of view about America, about masculinity, about what?" Eastwood cut him off. "About standing up for yourself, about taking responsibility, about not being a victim? Yeah, I push that agenda. Guilty as charged. Is that a problem for you?" "It's a problem when that worldview excludes other perspectives," Strahan said. "When it presents one narrow definition of what it means to be strong or American." Eastwood's laugh was harsh and bitter. "Narrow? I've made movies about jazz musicians, boxing trainers, Secret Service agents, cowboys, detectives, soldiers. I've told stories about every kind of person you can imagine. But because I don't apologize for believing in personal responsibility, suddenly I'm narrow? You make everything about individualism," Strahan argued. "What about community? What about systemic issues? Your movies act like if people just try hard enough, everything will work out." "Because it will," Eastwood's voice boomed. "That's not naive, that's reality. I've lived it. I grew up with nothing and I worked my ass off to get where I am. Nobody gave me a damn thing. Not everyone has the same opportunities you had." "Opportunities?" Eastwood was almost yelling now. "I had to dig ditches. I had to work in a lumber mill. I got drafted and sent to Korea. Those were my opportunities, Michael. And you know what I did? I worked through them. I didn't sit around making excuses." "That's exactly what I'm talking about," Strahan shouted back. "That bootstrap mentality that ignores reality. Not everyone can just work their way out of their situation. Then they're not working hard enough." The audience gasped. Some people in the crowd started booing. Strahan's face went red. "Are you serious right now?" Strahan's voice was shaking with anger. "Are you really sitting here saying that poor people, that marginalized people, that they're just not working hard enough?" "I'm saying that I've seen people overcome every obstacle you can imagine," Eastwood said, not backing down. "I've seen immigrants come here with nothing and build empires. I've seen people from the worst neighborhoods make something of themselves. And I've also seen people with every advantage piss it all away, making excuses. So yeah, I believe in personal responsibility. Sue me." "That's ignorant." Strahan was standing now, pointing at Eastwood. "That's privileged and ignorant and exactly the kind of thinking that—" "Privileged?" Eastwood stood up too, and suddenly they were face to face. "Don't you dare call me privileged. I earned every single thing I have, every award, every dollar, every bit of respect. You want to talk about privilege? Look at yourself. You played a game for a living and now you sit here in this cushy job judging people who actually create things." "I create things," Strahan yelled. "This show matters to people. We inform, we entertain, you read whatever producers put on your teleprompter. You smile and nod and cash your check. Don't compare what you do to what I do." "Why? Because you're the great Clint Eastwood? Because you think you're better than everyone else?" "I don't think I'm better than everyone," Eastwood said coldly. "Just better than you." The studio went completely silent. You could hear people breathing. Strahan's co-hosts looked horrified, but Strahan himself looked ready to explode. "Get off my stage," Strahan said quietly. "What?" "I said get off my stage." Strahan's voice was low, but intense. "You come on here. You insult me. You insult my show. You insult an entire generation. I'm done. Get out." Eastwood stared at him for a long moment. "You're kicking me off?" "Damn right I am." This is my show. And I don't have to sit here and take this crap from a washed-up actor who can't accept that the world has moved on without him. Washed up? Eastwood's voice was dangerously quiet. Yeah, washed up. You're a relic, Clint. A fossil. You had your time and it's over. Now get the hell off my stage before I have security remove you. The studio went silent. Everyone was staring. Strahan's co-hosts looked like they wanted to disappear. But Michael wasn't done. And neither was Eastwood. You don't have the balls to have me removed, Eastwood said, his voice cold as ice. Try me. Strahan shot back. Eastwood took a step closer. They were inches apart now. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I've dealt with better men than you, Eastwood said quietly. Directors who actually had vision. Actors who actually had talent. Journalists who actually asked real questions. You? You're nothing. You're a puppet who smiles for the camera and does what he's told. You don't scare me. And you're a bitter old man who can't handle that nobody cares about your opinion anymore, Strahan yelled. You walk around like you're God's gift to cinema. But you know what? Your last 3 movies bombed. Nobody went to see them. Nobody cares what Clint Eastwood thinks anymore. Is that right? Eastwood's voice was shaking with rage now. Yeah, that's right. You're irrelevant. You're a has-been. And the only reason we even booked you on this show is because we felt sorry for you. We thought, let's give the old man one more moment in the spotlight before everyone completely forgets about him. That was the breaking point. Eastwood's face went dark. When he spoke, his voice was low and lethal. You smug little bastard, Eastwood said. You have no idea what you're talking about. No idea what it takes to do what I do. You're a child playing dress-up, pretending to be a professional. And one day, when you're old and washed up and nobody remembers your name, you'll look back on this moment and realize that you threw away your dignity for ratings. My dignity? Strahan laughed, but it was an angry, bitter laugh. That's rich coming from you. You've been sitting here for the last 20 minutes acting like a complete jackass, insulting everyone, dismissing everyone, acting like you're the only person in the world who matters. I don't act like I'm the only person who matters, Eastwood said. I just don't pretend that everyone's opinion is equally valid, especially not yours. Screw you, Strahan shouted, and his voice cracked. Seriously, screw you, Clint. You know what your problem is? You can't handle criticism. You can't handle anyone challenging you. You're so used to everyone kissing your ass that the second someone asks you a real question, you fall apart. A real question? Eastwood's voice rose to match Strahan's volume. You haven't asked me a real question this entire time. You've been baiting me, trying to get me to say something controversial so you can clip it and put it online and get your precious clicks. Well, congratulations, you got what you wanted. What I wanted was a respectful conversation, Strahan yelled. But you came in here with an attitude. You came in here looking down on everyone. You made this hostile. I made this hostile? You started this whole thing by asking about my age, by implying I should retire, by suggesting I'm out of touch. You set the tone, Michael, not me. One of the co-hosts finally found her voice again. Guys, please, can we just stay out of this? Both men shouted at the same time, not even looking at her. They turned back to each other, and the hatred in their eyes was palpable. This wasn't just a disagreement anymore. This was personal. This was war. You want to know what your real problem is? Eastwood asked, his voice dropping to that dangerous quiet again. You can't stand that I won't play your game. You want me to sit here and smile and promote my movie and tell you how great you are. But I won't do it. Because you're not great. You're mediocre. And someone needed to tell you that. And you're a miserable old prick who thinks being mean makes him tough. Strahan shot back. You think you're some kind of hard man because you scowl at people and talk down to everyone? That's not strength, Clint. That's insecurity. That's an ego so fragile that it can't handle the slightest challenge. My ego? Eastwood actually laughed. My ego? Have you looked in a mirror? You're the one who can't handle being questioned. I push back even a little bit and you completely lose your composure. You call yourself a professional? This is embarrassing. You want embarrassing? Strahan's voice was shaking now, his face red. I'll tell you what's embarrassing. A 94-year-old man who's so desperate to stay relevant that he'll come on morning television and act like a complete ass just to get attention. That's embarrassing. Eastwood's eyes went cold. dead cold. When he spoke, every word was measured and sharp. I don't need attention, Michael. I have a legacy. I have a body of work that will be studied for generations. What do you have? A morning show that people watch while they eat their breakfast and forget about 5 minutes later. So, before you start talking about relevance and legacy, maybe take a look at what you've actually accomplished. Because from where I'm standing, it's not much. Strahan was breathing hard. His hands clenched into fists. Get out, I'm going. No, get out now. Strahan pointed toward the exit. I want you off this set. I want you out of this building. Security. I don't need security to show me the door, Eastwood said. He reached down and ripped the microphone off his shirt with such force that the wire snapped. The sound echoed through the studio. I'll walk out of here on my own 2 feet, just like I walked in. And unlike you, I'll still have my self-respect when I leave. You think you have self-respect? Strahan shouted after him. You just made a fool of yourself on national television. Eastwood stopped walking, turned around slowly, looked Strahan dead in the eye. At least I was being myself, Eastwood said. Can you say the same thing? Or are you so used to being whatever producers want you to be that you don't even know who you really are anymore? The look on Strahan's face said that one hit home, hit hard. But he wasn't about to back down now. I know exactly who I am, Strahan said, his voice tight. I'm someone who built a career on hard work and talent. Someone who treats people with respect. Someone who doesn't need to tear others down to feel important. Can you say the same? I can say that I've never compromised, Eastwood replied. I've never sold out. I've never pretended to be something I'm not. I've made enemies and I've made friends. But I've always been honest. Always been real. That's more than most people in this business can say. Especially you. Get the hell out, Strahan screamed, his composure completely gone now. Get out, get out, get out. Eastwood didn't respond. He turned and started walking toward the exit. But Strahan wasn't done. That's right, run away, can't handle the truth. That's what cowards do, Clint. Eastwood stopped dead. Several people gasped. Strahan was beyond caring. You can't even sit through a simple interview. You're a coward. A bitter old coward who can't accept that the world doesn't worship him anymore. Nobody moved. The studio held its breath. Eastwood turned around slowly. The look on his face made people shift back. He walked back toward Strahan. Steps measured. Strahan stood his ground, but his hands were shaking. Eastwood stopped about 5 feet away. His voice was so quiet the microphone strained to pick it up. You just made the biggest mistake of your career. You could have let me walk out, but you had to push it. You had to call me a coward. On live television. I don't care, Strahan said, voice wavering. You will. Because this moment, this is what people are going to remember. Not your football career. Not your morning show. This. The time you lost your composure and showed everyone who you really are. You don't have credibility anymore. You're a relic. Then why are you so angry? If I'm so irrelevant, if nobody cares what I think, why are you shaking right now? Strahan opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Eastwood nodded. That's what I thought. Deep down, you know I'm right. And it's killing you. Because you've spent your whole life trying to be liked. And here I am, not giving a damn what you think of me. That's what really bothers you. I don't need your approval. Then why do you keep yelling? Why can't you just let this go? Because you don't get to come on my show and disrespect me. This is my house. I'm not a guest. Guests get treated with respect. I'm a prop. A name you can use to boost your ratings. You don't care about my movie. You just wanted a famous face so you could clip the interview and put it online. That's not true, isn't it? Then why did you start this by asking about my age? Why bring up politics? Why keep pushing until I pushed back? You wanted drama. You wanted a viral moment. Well, you got one. I hope it was worth it. The co-hosts were crying. The audience was silent. Strahan looked gutted. I wanted a conversation, Strahan said quietly. No, you wanted a fight. And you got one. But here's the thing about fights, kid. You better make sure you can win before you start throwing punches. Because now everyone's going to see what happened. They're going to watch this over and over. And they're going to judge who came out on top. And it wasn't you. Get out, Strahan whispered. I'm going. But before I do, let me give you some advice. The next time you interview someone with actual talent, someone who's actually accomplished something meaningful, try showing them some respect. Try asking real questions. Try being a professional instead of a provocateur. Because if you keep treating guests like punching bags, you're going to run out of people willing to sit on that couch. Eastwood turned and walked toward the exit. No running, no storming, just a steady, deliberate walk. Strahan stood there, breathing hard, watching him go. Eastwood reached the door and pushed it open. Just before he walked through, he stopped and looked back. By the way, I've been doing this for over 60 years. I've seen hundreds of guys like you come and go. And you know what they all have in common? Nobody remembers their names. Then he walked through the door and let it slam shut behind him. The bang echoed through the studio like a gunshot, and just like that, he was gone. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Nobody said anything. The cameras kept rolling, catching every shocked face in the audience, every stunned crew member, every devastated co-host. And right in the center of it all was Strahan, standing there, breathing hard, looking like someone had just ripped his soul out through his chest. One of the producers finally yelled to cut to commercial, and the red lights on the cameras went dark. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. The footage was recorded. The fight was real, and within minutes, the clip would be everywhere. The second they cut to commercial, the studio exploded. Strahan collapsed back into his chair. His co-hosts surrounded him, but he wasn't really hearing them. He just kept shaking his head. Backstage, Eastwood walked straight through without saying a word. Not to his publicist, not to the producers. He got in his car and drove away. No goodbyes. Just gone. The producers tried to salvage the rest of the show, but everyone knew what the story would be. The moment Clint Eastwood and Michael Strahan went to war on live television, neither of them backed down. They both stood their ground. That's what happens when two stubborn men collide on live TV. The audience said the energy after Eastwood left was insane. People were talking, laughing nervously, looking upset. When they came back from commercial, Strahan tried to play it off. Passionate discussions, he called it. But his voice was still shaking. The most shocking part wasn't just that they argued. It was how personal it got. How quickly it escalated. Eastwood calling Strahan a joke? Brutal. Strahan calling Eastwood a coward? Equally devastating. This was warfare. The crew said they'd never seen anything like it. One cameraman said it felt like watching a car crash in slow motion. Another crew member said Eastwood's final exit was the most dramatic thing they'd witnessed. The way he came back after being called a coward, destroyed Strahan with words, delivered that final line, then walked out, like a movie, except real. This wasn't just an interview gone wrong. This was a clash of generations. When those worlds collided, the result was explosive. That footage exists forever now. This moment will define both men. The walk-off was legendary. Eastwood didn't storm off. He was calm, controlled, cold. As that door closed with that thunderous bang, everyone knew they'd just witnessed something huge, something people would be talking about for years.